All right, Richie. It's been a year since we've been doing these, buddy. It's been a good ride. Let's continue on here. Richie, with the rumors of this being the actual main event, right call? It kind of doesn't necessarily feel like it should be. It should be the opener, in my opinion. Let's start with that, the placement of the match. What do you think?
You know me. I'm like 1 foot in the old school, 1 foot in the new school. I do think the Hell in a Cell should always main event, no matter what kind of pay per view that you're on.
Yep.
I do know, like, for the past couple, like, the Hell in a Cell has gotten either like mid show or it's gone on the opening. I really do think because it's Bad Blood, you want it to be the closer. And with Cody and Roman, I don't see any like slack with them opening the show, get a hot opener up there.
Yeah.
But from a business standpoint, it kind of makes sense. You have two of your biggest draws essentially teaming for the very first time. Roman's first match back since WrestleMania. I mean, it just kind of is almost like a perfect storm in some way. So it's like I could see the argument for both sides, but from a television creative point, I would like to see the Hell in a Cell match go on last.
I agree with you. I think there'd be a little backlash here, perhaps, right? I think, but mostly I want the Hell in the Cell to main event because I think they've earned it, right? And to tell the story properly, it needs to be presented properly. Like, would it be a detriment to that match? No, but I don't think this match would need it. But pretty much what we got here is two mega power superstars, right, coming together to take off common foes. One being the leader of the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, and his right-hand man. What's the wording here? His
enforcer?
Enforcer, like Solo Sikoa was Roman Reigns' enforcer, right? Mm-hmm. And on the other side of that, we have Cody Rhodes, who has been chasing the Bloodline for the last 2 years, it seems like. But now the new version of the Bloodline, ever since pretty much WrestleMania ended, and Solo kind of made his claim to be tribal chief. And of course, if you're tribal chief, and to be tribal chief, you need to be world champion. So, do you think that the build has been strong enough here? And do you think these two foes are kind of big enough for these two mega stars? Start there.
I think when you go for the build, it's been a very uncharacteristic build because this match has kind of been building since Roman's come back. Because you had the Cody Roman stare off, and then you had the segment on SmackDown with Cody and Roman at Georgia Tech. And it is a match that is very unconventional in the build, especially when you have Solo and Jacob Fatu, who haven't, with Solo, a lot of people have been criticizing his position in the main event scene, whether it's he's not ready or he's not really as imposing. But the thing is, like, Solo's had his best match with Cody in that cage match, in my opinion. So he's obviously kind of getting the reps in, but Jacob Fatu is just kind of leaps and bounds athletically and is just a freak of nature. So it just kind of makes sense to give him like this showcase where you're getting a little bit of him and Roman, a little bit of him and Cody, and then you could gauge the crowd reaction in the interest of Jacob going off on his own. I think if Jacob is outshining Solo here, that's when you can kind of fast forward the outs of Solo Sikoa as tribal chief, and then you have Jacob and Tama Tonga Loa as that trifecta, so to speak. And as for like the Mega Powers tag team, I think you could make a case that this is this generation's kind of like team up. You know, there always seems to be like a big team up between like the two most popular stars, whether it was Rock and Austin, whether it was John and Randy, or John and Punk. But this time you're basing kind of a whole pay-per-view around it, and that being on a stage where both Cody and Roman have history in the state and the city that they're in. It just kind of makes for a perfect storm.
Yeah, they've done a good job kind of weaving that all together. Let me kind of rebuttal to the foes there. I think that Solo kind of settled, right? And by him settling and really just kind of finding his watering mark and settling at like a 6.5, 7 out of 10, right? It's kind of where he should be. And then Fatu can ultimately break that glass ceiling. And I think that you've seen the potential and the workings of that happening. I think once that Solo kind of showed who he was to the fans, especially the ardent fans that were kind of rejecting or complaining or not giving it a shot, so on and so forth. Once that they showed him who he was and how he is and where he's at right now, I think the dust settled. And like you said, he did have a great performance in that cage match on the debut of the USA Network SmackDown. And honestly, his SummerSlam performance wasn't too bad, maybe a little overblown on the side of, oh my God, dreadful. But it was like the structure and the awakening of Roman Reigns on the horizon really did hurt it. So, Solo's fine. He's just is what he is. He's not going to be the guy. He should definitely be a guy in this structure. And the guy that could be the guy is Fatu. I agree with you there for sure. All right, now let's talk about the two mega powers here. 2024 mega powers. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think that Roman Reigns' first match since WrestleMania 40, mind you, would be teaming with the guy that dethroned his almost 4-year title reign, Cody Rhodes. If you told me that leading up to his return match, I'd be like, wow, that's weird, right? That's a little off. It doesn't feel like that's presented to be such a great thing, but fuck, man, I don't know. I think it's interesting for sure. You want to let's kind of take a step in Georgia Tech Stadium. That is in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's Roman Reigns' side of Georgia, like you presented, that they have a common interest in the location of this, right? What did you think of that 8-minute mini movie, mini promo, mini whatever cinematic thing you want to call it? What'd you think of that, Richie?
I thought it was great. I'm a big fan of like trying different things. That's why I was drawn to Lucha Underground when it first started, and just doing things outside the box that are away from the backstage area. That's in a different location that you can expand on the story where it's shot differently. And a funny thing is when you can actually spot a goof during the the
Really?
promo itself. Yeah, because when Cody Rhodes is walking from the car into the middle of the field, you could see the championship like W face the other way as he's walking, and then it comes to the closer door hits him, then it's away from him. Just a little funny thing because it's like I always like picking up on little things like that, and didn't hamper my enjoyment of it. But I'm just kind of like, that's like that. We couldn't do another shot
Way to
there.
ruin it, Richie.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's like it's one of those things about being a film kid when when I was younger. But I thought it was a good establishment of just trying something one new and expanding on the Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes relationship. And we are seeing probably the ramifications that this team is going to have on both Roman and Cody, because you already saw it on SmackDown where Randy Orton's kind of side eyeing Cody. You have Kevin Owens that's kind of side eyeing Cody. And then on the flip side, you have Roman willingly give that contract to Cody Rhodes. So how's The Rock going to handle this? Because the last person that Roman teamed with was Rock. And now the next person that he's going to team with is Cody. It's not going to pass the smell test with either side. And I think we're already seeing the dissension and kind of the split apart, because I know a lot of people have criticized Cody Rhodes being involved with the Bloodline for so much. And I am agreeing to a certain extent, because it feels like Cody's reign is more of hurry up and wait. It's like we're waiting for the Randy match. We're waiting for the Rock match, but before then it was just kind of seemed like filler up to this point. So hopefully this is the beginning of Cody goes this way, Roman goes this way, and then we can build up to a third match later down the line. It doesn't even need to be for the championship as established, because that last line in that promo, Roman said, "You're in my way," and Cody steps out of the way. "You're in my way in life," and that's what's pretty much going to start and traject this whole Roman Cody rivalry, where it's like their last two matches, great, but like a bunch of interference. And then the third match, it's just going to be straight up one-on-one, in my opinion.
You mentioned that they're going to be coming together, right? At the end of that movie, or whatever you want to call it, they agreed to come together and have each other's back. You mentioned The Rock. That's kind of something that's a little forgotten about, because the last thing The Rock did on WWF TV or WWE TV was kind of say, "You'll see me sooner than later, Cody Rhodes," right? And I'm coming for that belt. And he has his own belt, by the way, but that's a whole nother subject. And then what does that mean for The Rock and Roman? What does this mean for Cody and Roman? And ultimately, what does this mean for the bloodline in The Rock, the bloodline in Roman? Will he regain it? Is this the step to the bloodline kind of colliding at War Games? Maybe we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. I don't think we'll see, to twine together what I started with. Do you think this match closes? I don't think we'll see The Rock in Atlanta at Bad Blood. But with this being perhaps the rumored main event, if this is actually last, are you on alert for The Rock?
I mean, you'd be a little silly not to think about The Rock in the back of your head, but I think the herring is probably Kevin Owens more than The Rock, because with Kevin Owens, it's been building up that Kevin Owens is not very happy with Cody teaming with Roman with all the history that's going on there. And you see Kevin Owens have ample opportunities to hit Cody with the chair, not doing it, kind of like restraining himself, you know. And there is a scenario I think would be interesting in my head. What if, like, instead of attacking Cody with the chair, Kevin attacks Roman with the chair, there in turn costing Cody the match, and then you have their conflict that's happening, you know? Or you go in the scenario of Cody Roman win, then Kevin Owens feels insecure about himself because he couldn't get the job done with the bloodline. So you have a lot of different scenarios you could act out here. And I think depending on what happens, I think Cody Roman and the bloodline, it's going to be a wonderfully told story. As for a last match on the show, I'm sure the crowd's not going to mind, and I'm sure those who are irritated by it being the last on the show, they're not going to be complaining about it for like a week from there. So it's going to do its job. It's going to be fine in my opinion. And whether it opens main events or is in the middle of the show, I'm still watching the show either way. So I
Right.
really do think it's like one of those things where like it's going to be one of those superstar tag matches, but it's going to be one of those bloodline matches, you know, a lot of drawn out, a lot of old school stuff going in there. And then at the end, it's going to be this car crash kind of mixture of big maneuvers.
See, ultimately, I think this is a pivot to War Games, right? I think at one side of War Games, you're gonna have Fatu, Solo, and the Tomatonga, Tongaloa, right?
Mhm.
On the other side, I think right now it's going to be Roman Reigns for the last since WrestleMania, right? Everyone's been saying Sammy, the Usos with Roman, right? Right now, end of September, I see Roman, Cody, KO, and Randy versus the Bloodline in War Games. And it's a SmackDown exclusive match. And that's what I see, because I see that you have Cody being the conduit to kind of bring everyone together, and Cody being and that makes him vulnerable to the latter of that, KO and or one of the other, right? And I think that Roman Reigns and and that would strengthen Cody Rhodes's bond perhaps with Roman Reigns. It's like, well, I had your back at Bad Blood. We didn't settle it, whatever. And then these guys are, I know there's a past, right? But these guys have my back. And the bloodline has ravished their careers the last 4 or 5 years, you and being involved or not. So I think there's some common vulgar hate that we can bring together, work together, and just finally erase the bloodline at War Games after we get perhaps, I don't know what a finish here, right? Like, I don't know what finish here would bring us to that scenario. And then I think the backstabbing would happen at the War Games with Cody, with either KO or Orton or both, right? So, because the first 2022 War Games, we had the Sammy acceptance, right, to the bloodline. Massive moment. Last year, we had the Orton return and the CM Punk return. Massive, massive business. So I think that Survivor Series, the culmination of this, and I think this match is a conduit to the bigger stage there. So that's why I don't think this makes sense to main event on Bad Blood. I think it's just weird, right? Like the blow off of the Hell in a Cell should be the main event. So that's why I'm alerted that the main event of War Games could be something bigger than what I just presented to you perhaps, if we get like this in the actual main event. And I think if we just end up with kind of a babyface victory, that's going to be a letdown because they built it up so big and then they presented it in the main event and kind of pushed other big things aside. And then it's just kind of a little bit of the little same old in a way, perhaps of a little backlash there. What do you think, gun to your head right now? No pressure. What is the War Games match coming out of this Bad Blood match before we get to the finish? Or if they coincide, go ahead.
Well, it really does depend on the finish. And with that, another factor is that Crown Jewel show that's in between this show and the Survivor Series show to help shape everything up.
Yep. So it's actually right in the middle of it, beginning of November.
So there's going to be not a lot of time to build to Survivor Series coming out of Crown Jewel. And with the interesting thing is Roman Reigns' schedule leading up to all that, because he's making legitimately all, if not most, of the SmackDowns within the next couple weeks after Bad Blood into Survivor Series builds. So he's going to be a part of those Crown Jewel and Survivor Series shows, is my guess. And what do you do in the meantime with this match? You could have Roman solo at Crown Jewel, and then you could save Roman and Jacob probably later down the line, and then you have that quote unquote like War Games match. And there's a lot of factors that you could still add in. You could add in a Jimmy Uso if you really wanted to. You could add in a Jey Uso and have that conflict of Jey finally winning the Intercontinental Championship, a championship he won without help of the Bloodline. How are we going to get him back in here? You know, so it's just like you have these different aspects at play. But if you want to keep it strictly on the SmackDown side, I mean, if you want that conflict, if you want that whole Cody, Roman, Kevin, Orton kind of team, you could definitely do so. And if you notice on SmackDown, it seems like Randy is kind of playing like peacekeeper / instigator in this sense, because if you notice on screen where Randy's like to Cody, it's like, I have no problem unless you make it a problem. And then you had Kevin Owens telling Cody, I don't want you coming out the ringside. And Randy's like, come out the ringside because you know how this is going to go down. So I think there's always a potential of the Kevin Owens turn being a red herring, because with his contract coming due, we're not sure like how he's going to be positioned on TV in the future, whether that's going to affect his position at all. And then you have Randy, and what better way for Randy to strike out of nowhere than the 1 year anniversary of how Cody brought him back into WWE and getting him with an RKO at War Games, you know, and get their issue started. So it really just kind of like depends on how you're feeling, because I can see that happening, but at the same time, with Cody and Roman teaming, this being like a first of many, and you do the next one like kind of like very soon afterwards, I'm not sure how I really feel about that.
So let's talk finish, right? I actually see the Bloodline winning this because I think that either way, it's going to continue to War Games, right? So, and I think the Bloodline winning this will get us there. I think that Fatu will get the pinfall. I just haven't decided if it's on Cody or if it's on Roman, right? So it's, what do you think? Say that scenario is true. Quick answer. What's more impactful?
More impactful would probably be the Bloodline, because winning, because if Roman and Cody win off the bat, then how did the Bloodline look from there? You know what I mean?
I'm saying, do you agree with, if you agree with Fatu pinning, which one is more impactful to pin?
Probably Roman.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, probably Roman if you want to prolong that Roman Fatu match. Not saying pinning Cody isn't a big deal, but we kind of already saw that with the 6-man that they had at Money in the Bank, right? With Solo pinning Cody.
Yeah.
So why not bring it all? Why not do another shock thing? Have Fatu pinning Roman. But at the same time, I could see them having Cody and Roman winning, and that's going to cause more friction between Randy and Kevin and Cody. And that's going to get their story started. And then you could still have that pinfall over Roman with Solo at Crown Jewel if you really wanted to go that route. So again, that pay-per-view in between Survivor Series is very important, even though Crown Jewel has a sketchy history with the card, just like kind of being hit or miss. But it's a very important narratively, because that's that final beat going into Survivor Series. So More impactful would be the Bloodline winning, but I could see them having Cody and Roman winning because it's the first time they're teaming up. So why would you just team them up only to have them lose? You know what I mean?
Well, unless if the goal is also having face each other sooner than later too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you could see two scenarios, right? I don't know what the result is, so that's good, right? That's very good, especially with these two mega teams coming together. Well, these two mega single stars coming together to create this mega team, and it's like, oh well, they should win, right? But I don't know. Like I could see it going the other way, and I kind of predicted to go the other way actually, which it makes the outcome in the match a little bit more interesting. So I think they're in a good spot with this for sure. I think there could be some backlash with placement. We already went over that, and I think there could be a little backlash if it's like prolonged, right? Like if it's SummerSlam-esque in a way where it's drawn out and it's a little masturbatory towards the bloodline, right? And they're in their bag a little bit too
it's
much.
going to be at least 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, if it's a little bit too much of the heat or the lack of heat, let's reframe there, right? I can see a little bit backlash there. So I think this has big potential. I just don't think it's super safe as it should be, right? And what's on their map? We beat around the bush of The Rock, right? When do you think we see The Rock next? Just before we get out of here with that.
I think we see The Rock next, probably at that Saturday night main event.
Okay, so nothing leading into it, but him presenting us there for that show, like kind of surprising.
Because it's their first show on NBC. It's their first thing, first of a couple of specials that they have contracted, and you want to make a big splash by bringing back Saturday night's main event. What's going to get the people talking? What's going to get the people invested who don't normally see WWE? Honestly, I could see Cody Roman potentially being at Saturday night's main event, just because you want to come out hot right out the gate right away, and it having like kind of like a screwy finish with The Rock kind of like laying waste to both of them. And honestly, if that's what you want to do to garner more of the casual audience to kind of like come in and be invested to WrestleMania season, that's how you got to start it off.
Interesting. All right. I don't mind that whatsoever at all. All right. Two things, Richie. One, who you got winning?
Again, like you, I could go either way, but I think I think they give it to the hometown guys. I think they give it to Cody and Roman because that's going to bring more conflict to the Cody, Randy, and Kevin scenario. And then with Roman, you could always have him lose at Crown Jewel to Solo, and then that's going to continue that issue.
Ooh, I'd flip that. I would have the Bloodline win here, and I would have him beat Solo at Crown Jewel. I don't think Solo deserves a historical win over Roman Reigns in a singles match. I'd push back on that one.
Yeah, it's Crown Jewel. No one's going to remember.
Yeah. People still remember King Corbin pinning him. All right. Number 2, Richie, most importantly, tomorrow or Tuesday morning, let's say, we have NXT tag teams draft. You were a part of it here on the No So. Let's check that out on the feed. That was fun as always, Richie, to have you in the draft. I enjoy the drafts. And NXT starting on the CW, NXT tag teams was timely, and it was very fun. A lot of teams to choose from for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that the team that I wanted the most hasn't made their supposed NXT debut yet. They would have been my first round pick. I seem to be getting always the 4th round spot, whenever I do one of these. So I'm not sure if it's something like spot. Sometimes it's the best spot, but at the same time, it's a very high pressured spot situation to be in. And with all these tag teams, again, you got Undisputed Era, you got DIY, you got the War Raiders, you got a bunch of different teams. You got even like the earlier teams like Enzo and Cass. You have even Pac and Oliver Gray, if you remember those guys. You know?
My cousin Oliver.
Yeah. So it's like you got a lot of teams to choose from because NXT, whether you want to say how the quality of the product has been over the last couple of years, the one thing that they do pretty consistently is the tag team division.
For sure.
Getting them called up to the main roster is a different story sometimes, but usually when you're confined to the NXT realm, the tag teams certainly have their own little niche following, which is always a good thing to have.
I would say it's bulletproof. Not gonna lie. Is the tag team division in NXT is kind of bulletproof for sure. So check that out here on the feed, guys. And Richie, for that, that's it for now. Happy 1 year anniversary, buddy. To many more.
Yes, many, many more I'm hoping for.
Awesome. Thanks, Richie. See you on the next one, buddy.
See you in the next one.